Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Fitter and Faster Coaches Corner. As always, I'm your host, Mike Murray. Thrilled to be joined today by the head coach at Wabash College in Indiana, Will Bernhardt. Will, welcome to the program. We are thrilled to have you. And I want to throw out right out of the gate, appreciate you allowing me to steal your assistant.
Yeah. You know, I'm happy that he's gone back home and doing what he loves, and so it means a lot that he spent 3 years here, and we were able to build a team up. But you know, as is any coaching position, you always know if you have a great assistant, you know they're going to move on and do great things. So happy that he's there to work with you, and yeah, really appreciative to be on the show today and just kind of talk swimming and talk shop.
Yeah, it's kind of fun to have you here virtually back in Western New York for an hour where you spent a lot of time. And today we are talking about the profession of coaching. And really, Will, I want to use this hour or 45 minutes to share your story so that coaches who are just getting into the business, like both you and I did so many years ago, and getting excited about how do we get our foot in the door. Talk to me about your early days as a coach, maybe some of the decisions that led to you going down this career path, and some of the things that you've learned along the way that young coaches can use as they start to develop their own career.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of jump right in and tell you, I mean, I knew I wanted to be a coach from the time I was about 13 years old. I can remember it was a morning workout. It was 5 a.m. and we were doing a set of 10-500s at Jackson Middle School way back when Jackson still had a pool. It's filled in now, but you know, I was swimming along, and you know, my coach is up there, and it's Candace Looze. It's Ray's wife, was my coach growing up, and she was up there, you know, just yelling and getting us going and fired up. And you know, I just remember during that set of just thinking, wow, like that looks like it's a really fun thing to do, and this looks like something that I really want to get into one day. And so pretty much from that point on, from when I was about 13, 14 years old, pretty much until I started coaching, it continues to be so today. Everything I've done, everything I've studied in school, everything, you know, my college major was exercise physiology. Everything was a step towards that next, you know, coaching position, or that initial coach's position. You know, when I went to IU, I was fortunate enough. Chris Kirshner was my head coach at the time, you know, and Greg Rominski was my assistant coach. I was fortunate enough that they were willing to let me step on deck my 5th year of college to be a volunteer assistant, a student volunteer assistant, because I was still in school. I transferred into IU, and so I had about a half a semester left with credits from the transfer that just I had to kind of take. And so that's pretty much how I got my initial start. You know, I was an exercise phys major at IU, and I said, you know, look, I want to go. I want to coach. I want to do this thing as a profession. I want to do this thing as a life. You know, I'm passionate about it. I can't wait to get on deck and start doing things. And you know, pretty much from there, you know, it's kind of just grown, and each position is kind of given me more, not only more responsibilities, but also just more knowledge. You know, like, I mean, student assistant, I didn't know what was what, you know, and you know, some of the guys on the team were my roommates. You know, I was actually just telling the story to some of my athletes yesterday. They were asking me kind of about my coach's progression, and I said, yeah, you know, I said, you know, we had, you know, we had a very, I set all my roommates down. You know, they're all on the team. The whole house is on the team, and I said, look, when I'm on deck and I'm coaching you, you know, it's a coach athlete relationship, and I need you to take it seriously. And, you know, this is what I want to do. So I need you to listen. You know, when we're out, you know, to eat or whatnot at the house, like, then I'm your roommate, and it's much different. And they were really understanding of that. And so we were really grateful of just that time at IU. Um, it was fun. It was incredibly, fulfilling, and it just gave me that. It gave me that sense of like, this is the right thing. This is what you're meant to do. And then I just kind of kept going from there.
What an amazing thing to, at a relatively young age, jump into a pretty serious college program, and to know so many of your peers were on the team, and at that young age having to draw that line. And so many of our colleagues when we're young transition maybe from having just graduated to maybe being the graduate assistant coach. You talk a little bit about that. That was a very hard thing for me to do my first year. Talk about the responsibility that it's required when taking that step from all of a sudden being the juniors, sophomores, and freshmen, being their teammate, being their best friend, maybe being their roommate or housemate. And now all of a sudden you have to draw that line in the sand that's very distinct. Now this is the coach-athlete relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was a big jump, and like I said, we sat down as a house, I kind of called a house meeting, and specifically with my roommates, because we had 6 guys in the house, and so I mean, it was a pretty good chunk of the team, as far as one living unit, and we just sat down and talked about it, and I just asked them. I said, I want you to help me grow. I want you to help me, get to this point where, one day I will be running my own program, and I hope that you can take that seriously. And I had a lot of guidance from Coach Kirshner and Coach Rominski of, listen, this is what you're going to need to do. And I just told the team in general, because I wasn't just working, obviously, like I wasn't just coaching my roommates, I was helping coach the whole team. I was a backstroker, primarily backstroker in college. So a lot of times I did just have the backstroke group, and just kind of, hey, go put together an underwater set that's going to kill their legs. All right, I can do that because it's what I've been doing my whole life. But we kind of sat down as a team as well, because almost the entirety of the team, except for the freshmen that year, were teammates with me the previous year. And so I told them the same thing. Look, I just hope that you can respect me enough as a person to help me grow, and know that anything that I tell you, or if I come down on you at practice, or if I'm kind of like getting on your butt, like that, it's coming from a place of, I'm just trying to help you. It's not anything other than I want to make our program, and I want to make you the best person that you can be, and I want to make our program the best program it can be. And so it was a lot of responsibility, and it did take, it took some time. It wasn't like that first workout everyone was like, oh yeah, cool, we're awesome, no worries, Will. I mean, it took some time, and it took a couple conversations with some other people that on the team, that I'm like, look, I just need you to help me out here. And it never really evolved into anything other than me speaking to them. I think Coach, kind of told the whole team at one point, but that was about it. It didn't really need to go any further, because, I think the guys did understand that this was something that was important to me, and my coaching evolution and my coaching kind of trajectory. And they were really supportive of it. So it definitely was a benefit to me.
What I really like about that, Will, is your strategy was to use your former teammates as partners in you transitioning to being a coach. And that's a great strategy. As we mentioned, it can be a challenging thing. You're the same age as a lot of these guys and gals, and all of a sudden to transition from teammate, friend, roommate, that can be a challenge. But I like how, and I think what younger coaches can gain from what you said is engage them as partners, use them as your teammates, but in a different way. I think that's really exciting. Now, you mentioned, here you are at a place that's steeped in such great swimming tradition, and growing up, around that, and swimming for a coach like Candace Looze. What are some of the things that you picked up that Candace was doing when she was your age group coach that really fired you up about the sport? You shared the one story, but what are some things that you learned that you've now taken into your college coaching career?
Yeah, I think from an age group perspective, I mean, Candace was a relationship driven coach. So she wanted to, get to know us and be a part of our lives. Right. And understand who we were as human beings. And so that was, I think, something that I took greatly from her, because that's how I am today. Like, I'm relationship driven. I want to know my athletes. I want to stay on top of their mental health. I want to stay on top of their family. I want to know things about them. It's not just coming to the pool and go, and all right, see you later, see you tomorrow kind of deal. We sit down and we have conversations about life. We have conversations about what they're going through. Because there's so many different things, not only from my perspective here on a college campus, but when I was an age group coach, you have an 11-year-old kid that's coming to practice, and you can tell they're upset, and hey, what's going on? Last night my parents told me we're going to get a divorce or something, like those types of things. You don't know what's going on outside the pool until you ask. And I think that's, one of the things that I took a lot from Candace. I mean, she knew me, she knew my parents, she knew what kind of, what kind of things I needed as far as a development as a person. And I can tell you a funny story about the one that kind of, rings true to me as well, just developing me into a better person. We were at Riley High School, my high school. We used my club team in South Bend, was Michiana Marlins growing up. It's now Irish Aquatics. But at the time, Michiana Marlins used about 7 different pools in the city of South Bend. And so we were at my high school pool that we were using for, I don't even know, just an evening practice. And she didn't allow chewing gum at practice. You couldn't chew gum. We were doing dry land. And I'm doing crunches, and I'm chomping up my gum. And William, do you have gum? What? No, I don't have any gum in my mouth. No, I'm good. Start going away and, wasn't thinking about it. And William, I see you have gum. Do you have gum? No. And then one of my teammates was like, yeah, he does, and she pulled me over and, she said, look, I know, better. Like, you just lied to me. Like, you straight up lied to my face, and I'm not going to accept that. So you can go home, you can tell your father and your mother what you did. And, if you can come back tomorrow and the difference between right and wrong and how you shouldn't lie to your coaches and things like that, like, then you can come back and join the group again. But until then, I'm going to need you to go home. You're going to write, like, I think it was like 100 sentences. I will not chew gum and lie to my coach at practice. And literally had to write sentences. And I sat down at the table and I told my dad, told my mom, and, all right, we'll get going, and I wrote sentences, I turned them in, and years later now, we still have a good laugh about that, because she remembers that story. And obviously it was something that, stuck with me for years, because I was 15, 16 years old. And, she literally caught me red-handed, and taught me that that's just not something that's acceptable in any sort of fashion. And I'm definitely thankful for that, because it's something that I hold my athletes to this day, too, is, being respectful and making sure you're making good decisions and right decisions. And, so I those are a lot of just small things like that, and just her energy. And, I had a lot of great coaches growing up, and she coached me for about, I think 7-8 years, when I was about 11 until I was 18. And so it was a very much a very good relationship that helped me develop as a young boy into what would be a man. And thankful for, her strong character and her strong ability to keep us, honest, and keep us, moving forward in what we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to be acting.
That that story, aside from being a great tidbit about things that you learned, also reinforces to me that Ray and Candace might be the most perfect swimming couple ever.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny, and, they, they really are kind of that perfect team, and so I'm just grateful that they've always been mentors to me, and always been, there for me in my life. I actually lived with their family, when I moved out to California for a summer, and lived with their family and shared a room with their son. And, so it's those types of things that, I think from a swimming standpoint, you wouldn't get that. Yeah. I just don't feel like you get that on a baseball team or something, like, and I'm not knocking any other sport, just saying there's just that special bond that I think swimming and just the culture and how we promote the growth of our athletes, I think is just so special.
No doubt about it, Will. And talk to us about now transitioning from that sort of that fifth year, first time coach into your next position. What did that look like?
Yeah.
When did you feel like you now had the tools to say, okay, I'm ready to take that next step?
Yeah. And so it was kind of funny. Like I told you, I always knew I wanted to coach. And so that year that I was coaching at IU, during my fifth year, it started like, all right, well, what am I going to do next? And it was December, and I was like, well, I'm just not ready to go to grad school. Like I needed some time away. I'd gone to Kansas for 2 years and transferred into IU and was there for 3. And so I'd been in school for 5 years and was like, I'm just not ready for grad school right now. So I know I want to go out and start coaching, but what do I do? And sat down and talked with my parents and called Candace and called a few other people and well, why don't you look into, getting into club coaching and then kind of take that route. And so it was like middle of December. So at the time they were still running kind of like the December national championships, kind of the winter, nationals. And so I got online and I looked at the top 10 clubs that finished at winter nationals, and I started cold calling head coaches. And I called Dynamo, I called Swim Atlanta. I really didn't care where I went. I just wanted to work for one of the best teams in the country. Called Nations Cap, called Irvine Nova, literally the top 10 of clubs that year. I just started cold calling, any coach that I could find numbers for. The only
Will, I want to stop you there because that takes so much courage.
Yeah.
And the one thing that we're trying to do at ASCA, and one thing that we are very involved with Fitter and Faster, is trying to teach and encourage these young coaches to step outside their comfort zone. So when you found that top 10 list of teams at nationals and you decided to cold call those head coaches, tell these young coaches what was going through your head when you made the decision to do that.
Yeah. So the only thing that was going through my head was like, I want to work and learn from the best, and I don't care. I don't care where it's at. I could go to Florida. I could go to wherever. I didn't care. Like, I was like, I just want to be the best coach that I can. And I know that the only way I can do that is working with the best people that I can find. And at that time my kind of, my circle of friends and trust it was very small because it was literally limited to Indiana. I'd born and raised in Indiana, went to IU. And so I didn't have a lot of, people that I could call and say, hey, can I have this job? Or, hey, what, I saw you're looking for somebody or this or that. And so, it was nerve wracking. To be honest, because literally I was calling some of the best coaches in the world and trying to literally, persuade them to take a chance on me. This 22-year-old, college athlete that, was literally just coming out of college and knew very little. So every single time I pick up that phone, every single time I got a voicemail, I was like, oh, what do I say? How do I get across the voicemail? Hey, call me back, And so literally every call, it was, I can't tell you how much energy I portrayed through the phone of just, if it was a voicemail, it was like, my name is Will Bernhardt. I'm a 5th year senior at IU. I am looking to get into professional coaching. I want to make this my living. Literally, I just sat there, in my room and I just kind of took like a 2 to 5 minute pre-call, like, let's go. Kind of, I used my same kind of mantra of like what I'm doing when I was an athlete, getting ready to race. I kind of got myself in a zone because I knew I had 20 seconds on a voicemail or maybe a minute if I actually got through to someone to kind of, all right, I'm intrigued. I'll listen to you. And unfortunately, out of those probably 10 to 15 calls I made, only one called me back. And that was Dave Salo out at Irvine Nova. And this was obviously pre-USC days, but so Dave was the head coach at Irvine Nova. He had, come off of extremely successful 96 games, 2000 games, I was, floored when he picked up the phone and who is this? And I said, Will Bernhardt, Indiana. And he's like, all right, well, tell me a little bit about yourself, Will, in Dave's kind of way. And I mean, we had, I don't know, maybe a 20-minute conversation. And he said, well, you're in luck, we're looking to hire some coaches. I'm going to put you in touch with one of my other coaches that's at one of our other satellites. And, I want you to kind of go through and have an interview with them and see if it's going to work. But I mean, you've convinced me, you've got energy, you've got the, you want to do it, are you willing to come out to California? And I said, I'm willing to go anywhere. Like you tell me you got a satellite in Alaska, I'm going up there, like, I don't care. I just want to coach for you. I want to learn from you and I want to learn from your program. And that's literally how it happened. I think we had another call, like a conference call with one of the other coaches and himself and myself. And in that call, he offered me the position and said, look, I'll never forget it. He goes, when do you graduate? And I said, May 4th. He goes, can you be out here May 6th? I kind of paused. Yep, I can. I'll be there. And again, I mean, this is one of the best coaches in the world that's taking a chance on me. I'm not going to say, nah. I'm taking a week. I got to go down to Florida with some buddies, hang out. I'm like, no, all right, let's go. I graduate. 2 days later, literally my dad and I jumped in a U-Haul and drove cross country, made one stop and we got actually a flat tire in Tucumcali, Cali, New Mexico. And other than that, we were pretty much driving straight through and that's how it started. And I spent some time out at Irvine Nova and, again, it was just a chance, I was like, I just want to do this. I could have stayed closer and probably done something in Indiana or elsewhere. But, for me, I made that decision to take the leap, and literally, take the leap across the country and just knew that to be the best or to try to learn from the best, you just got to be there. You got to be involved. That's how it happened.
Pretty amazing that Coach Salo is as open-minded as he is, right? And here you are, unknown, and just, in my experience with working with some things with Dave, with ASCA, just such an open mind, right? And that teaches you so much about being a coach. So what are some of the things that you took away from your time there? It's whenever juniors is there, that's my favorite outdoor pool maybe in the world.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Love it.
Talk to us about what it's like working at Irvine Nova Aquatics.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a whirlwind, I'll be honest. I mean, I kind of got thrown in and luckily I had some roommates from college at Kansas that were moving out there at the same time. And so I was able to kind of secure some living situation with some guys that I knew. And, but I mean, from my time on deck and the time at Nova, I mean, I literally, I was, 22, 23 years old and they're like, all right, well, we need you to run this lesson program out at this country club's pool that we're running. And, you're going to be there every day and doing this and doing that. And I was like, oh, okay. And then at this time, you got to be at this practice at this pool. And literally it was like thrown in full force of just here it is, go with it, run with it. And so, I learned really quickly, time management in Southern California is very important because, you leave your house, literally 5 minutes past the time when you probably should, and you're going to be stuck in traffic. A trip that usually took me about 20 minutes, first couple weeks I was there, I left literally 5 minutes late and it took me almost an hour and 5 minutes. And so definitely learned that time management was key. Just delegation of responsibilities. We had, staff meetings where, I was asked what I thought of things, I'm like, who are you talking to? Me? You're asking me what I think, and it was definitely a great learning environment. because it wasn't, it wasn't anyone's singular way or the highway. It was, all right, how can we improve? How can we find ways to get better? What can we do to help these kids improve? And I think that's why they had and continue to have, such great success, is just that, it really is, it is a collective of minds, of coaching minds. It's not, a singular mind that is, look, this is what we have to do. There's obviously there's ways that they do things out there, but it was just really fun to be involved with that, and know that that's kind of how I got my start, is let's find the collective good, and let's figure out how we can get better. And that's definitely something I take with me today. We even here at Wabash is, we talk daily about how we can get better. We talk about practices, we talk about dry lands and weights and everything. It's not me saying, all right, we got to do this, this, and this. It's, all right, what do you think? How are we going to get better? And so that's definitely something I picked up very, very quickly at Irvine. And like I said, also just about responsibility as a young coach, I got yelled at a couple times. I was late, to a country club pool that literally, there was, it was just a lesson program, and it's 5 minutes late, and the director of the lesson program just gave me a call. Where you at? I was like, I'm pulling in right now. She's like, well, if you're not early, you're late. You need to be there, and you need to be there ready to go. Okay. And so very early on, just learned that that's the most, I think one of the most important things for us is to be there when people are coming in the door, so that they can see you and greet you and understand, hey, like, we're in this together. It's not showing up literally right as practice starts, things like that. But it was great. I loved it. It was a great time out there. But just being a Midwest guy, I needed to get back home to my roots. California was fun and all, but needed to kind of get back here and be closer to family.
So here you are, Will, you're young, 20-something, coaching. You've coached in the Big Ten Conference and at one of the best swim clubs on the planet. Now, where do you go from there?
Yeah, so kind of same deal as kind of when I was coming out of college. It's really weird how my next step just kind of happened. Was out at Irvine coaching at the Swimming to Champions in Mission Viejo, and the house, actually, the apartment I lived at was less than a 5-minute walk to the Mission Viejo pool, but yet I worked at Irvine Nova, like 30 minutes away. But anyways, so I'm at the meet there, and Sergio Lopez was there with the Northwestern guys, and Jimmy Tierney and Bob Grosseth. They had taken their Northwestern kids out to the Swimming to Champions, and I literally just, Sergio came up to me. He's like, "Oh, I remember you from Big Tens. You're Will, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." Backstroker, right? Yeah. And he's like, "Oh yeah, Tony beat you last year, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, thanks." Because I was a senior and Tony Swanson was a freshman at Northwestern, and it was fun. It was Sergio's way of, how he is. But and so we just started talking, and literally that was it. I was just like, "Oh, great, it's fun, get to reconnect with the Big Ten, conference school coach, blah, blah, blah." And, about a week, 2 weeks later, Sergio calls me kind of out of the blue, and he's like, "Hey, we're looking for a head age group coach to run our program. Are you interested?" And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's like, "Well, you're a Midwest guy, I thought we'd take a chance. I loved your energy. I loved how you presented yourself on deck at Mission Viejo." And, Rob and Jimmy kind of said the same thing of, they just think that you would be a right fit for us. And so we just want to talk to you and see if you'd be interested. And then we can kind of go through an interview, blah, blah, blah. And I said, "Yeah, like, I'm cool with that," and so we kind of went through an interview process, and it just kind of happened that it was just the right fit for me at the time. I'd only been coaching out in Irvine for, I don't even know, like less than 6 months, but it was an opportunity that presented itself to not only get back closer to home, but they wanted me to be a head coach of a club program, and then also be their volunteer assistant with the men and women at Northwestern. And I was like, well, this is kind of a perfect opportunity, because this is exactly what I'm looking for. I was taking more of I want to get the experience from a coaching standpoint to then transition to a college position one day. And I didn't know when that was going to be. And I knew it was going to be a process, but I knew it needed time to develop. And so I said, I would love to make this work. Interview process went well. They offered me the job and moved back to Chicago, to the north side of Chicago there. And kind of took over the club program and was their volunteer assistant for 3 years during kind of what would be kind of their heyday, like Gravers.
Well, you understand that your mentors to this point, before you've reached 25, are pretty substantial.
Yeah. And literally, like at the time, like, I mean, being a young coach, I knew, but I didn't really know, and so, I mean, it's been, I've been incredibly grateful and lucky that, I've learned from some of the best, most quality people out there, not just coaches, but quality people. And, it was looking back, once I kind of left or maybe went to that next position, you kind of look back and be like, wow, I really had a really good deal here, like Bob Groseth and Sergio on the men's program, and Jimmy and Jocelyn J, who's actually up in Canada now coaching, and her husband actually was one of my age group coaches as well. Just the plethora of knowledge and just the sheer years of swimming, kind of knowledge, and just being around the sport was just awesome. I mean, we had so many, not only great discussions, but we had just so many learning opportunities, where hey, go work with these kids, go do this, go do that, literally. I mean, and Jimmy and Bob were kind of the same way that Dave was, is just, we want you to learn, and there's no way you're going to learn by just literally standing on the side. So here, go do this with them, go write this set for them, go do a tower workout with the short axis guys, or go do a freestyle, set with these kids, and so it was just such a fun experience. Like every day, you just went in and it was like, wow, like I'm just so lucky to be doing what I love to do and share the passion that I have for not only coaching, but swimming with all of them, and just learning and just watching and understanding. And it was really fun.
That is quite an experience, and to have those guys, and in my mind, Jimmy Turney, one of the best guys in the sport.
Yeah,
just a teacher.
Yeah, yep.
Just a teacher of coaches. And so here you are. You're back. You're working with the Northwestern staff. You're coaching some club. Then what happens, Will, in the next step of the progression?
Yeah. So then my next step of the progression, I kind of stayed with the club gig. And I felt I had a lot of knowledge. I spent 3 years in Chicago with Northwestern and the club team there. And, it was a little bit of a different run type of club. Like it was a coach owned club. So Jimmy and Bob owned the club. And then we had a parent, like a board of directors that supported, kind of what we were doing. So, I mean, I don't know if I had an official title or not, but, I was kind of running the show. It's like CEO or whatever you want to call it. I mean, had to learn how to, manage money and budgets and all that stuff. And I'm like, manage money. I'm like, I'm 25 years old. What do you mean? Living in Chicago, single guy, I don't know. But, I learned really quickly from them. And then that opened up, a possibility of going back home to my club team, to what the team that I grew up on. And like I said, at the time, I grew up on Missionary Marlins, but then it merged with other teams in South Bend and formed Irish Aquatics. And so, they were looking for a new coach. They were looking for kind of, a singular vision. So they were going through, a couple of years of kind of having just combined. And so, it's kind of one of those situations where you had 3 major clubs in the city of South Bend that all kind of merged into one. And so they were looking to go into kind of a singular vision, and they knew that I grew up in the program. I was coaching in the Midwest, and And so it kind of then divulged into, hey, we're looking to kind of hire a head coach, and would you be interested? I said, well, how can I not be interested to give back to the club that I grew up, and be back home? And so, went through the interview process. And that's one thing I can say to any coach, and to any young coach, or just any coach in general. I mean, I learned from a really early age from all those mentors that I had, not only Dave, Sergio, Bob, Jimmy, but, you don't, during an interview process for a coaching job, take it as a professional experience. Like you need to take it as a lot of people are like, oh, interviewing for a coaching job, oh, I'm going to show up in polo and shorts and kind of just do my thing, right? Like, I showed up, suit, tie, full, fresh haircut, everything to the T, because first impressions matter. And I didn't, especially with this job, with the job at Irish, I didn't want anything that I had done to as an athlete in the program to kind of, be like, oh, well, he was a great swimmer in our program, so he's going to be a good coach. I was like, no, like my first impression for walking through the door is what I want you to know. Like, I want this job, and I'm serious about this job. And so, I mean, I didn't take anything for granted in that interview experience just because I grew up in the program or in the area. It was literally like, all right, like, this is a job I want because I want to give back to this club. And, was able to spend 5 years in South Bend. I was 3 years I was just coaching the club side. The Notre Dame men and women both kind of had their volunteers that they had for several years. And then Brian Barnes got hired on as a women's coach my last 2 years in South Bend. And he immediately, asked me to be their volunteer assistant on the women's side of things.
Well, I want to ask you about that because Brian Barnes, one of the coaches that I have the most utmost respect for.
Yeah.
His life story is amazing. The challenges that he faced in his coaching career, amazing.
Yeah.
And obviously now a little biased here, but at NC State and going to do great things.
Yeah.
But, again, another huge name on the list of people that you've been so fortunate to work with. Talk a little bit about Brian Barnes.
Yeah. And not only with Brian, but I was their volunteer assistant, but I mean, my 5 years over my time at Notre Dame, I mean, Tim Welsh was literally my direct report. Like him, the men's coach, the women's coach, and then our board president were kind of the three that kind of ran Irish Aquatics. And so, I mean, I spent 5 years, and not only 5 years, but literally my whole life growing up around Tim Welsh, and spent so much time with him and learned from him. But, as Brian was kind of the direct coach that I was working with, on the women's team, I mean, Brian's like a big brother to me. His younger brother, Steve, is one of my closest friends. We grew up on the Marlins together. We're same age, graduated same year in high school, went to different high schools, but I've known Steve since I was 7. I've known Brian since I was 7 years old. We had sleepovers, and Steve and Brian's house, and our families were super close. We go out to dinners and things together and hang out. And so Brian's always been there for me as not only a swimmer, but also as a coaching mentor as well. And just like, I guess just one of the great things I learned from Brian is just kind of, spontaneity of just kind of being in the moment with your athletes and knowing what they need in that moment. I mean, there's several times over my years, at Notre Dame with Brian and Kate Kavanagh, who's also our assistant coach at the time. Like literally Brian was like, this practice is trash. They don't need this. Like we need to take our foot off the gas and just stretch this out, like, or just at times of like, was that good? That was pretty good. I think we're done, like just being in the moment and knowing that it's okay to change plans, and we didn't do it every day. It wasn't like a weekly occurrence, but sometimes your athletes, they deep down inside, if you're giving them a workout and it's like, this workout's going nowhere, like this is not productive, either mentally or physically or emotionally, whatever it is. And be like, all right, gang, huddle up, hop out, huddle up, and huddle up and be like, all right, go home. We'll see you later. And everyone's like, what? Oh my gosh, And so I think just learning that was okay, and again, like, we didn't do it all the time. We always had a plan going into every workout. We sit down as a staff and write workouts, or, here you take mid D, I'm going to take distance, and here you take sprint, kind of deal. But I mean, just knowing that we were able to realize that in the moment and make a change in plans that helped our athletes, whether that was physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it was. That was something that I think I took, to heart from Brian, and just really understanding that, I can't tell you a person that is more fun to work with on deck than Brian Barnes. Just not only some of the conversations, but just having the ability to share a deck with somebody that just makes you laugh every day and makes you just explore, what types of things you want to, work on next, and just having, that mind of being able to say, like, all right, like, what if we try this? What do you think's going to happen? And I was like, I don't know, and he's like, well, tell me, come on. Like, what do you think they're going to get out of this? How do you think they're going to react to this? And trying to, like, think ahead, 2, 3, 4 steps, something that Brian is incredibly good at. And I think that's what makes him such a great coach. It's just that he's so connected with his athletes, and he understands how they work, and can make that split second judgment of, like, all right, well, let's kind of do this, or let's trash this, and let's do that. So it was incredibly fun. It was so much fun.
So you're at a dream job at this point. You're in your hometown.
Yeah.
You're coaching the program that you grew up in. You're around some amazing coaches and mentors that are helping you at every turn. What was the allure about another opportunity, perhaps somewhere else?
Yeah. So at that point, I had spent 5 years at Irish Aquatics, 2 with the Notre Dame women's team. I felt, I during those 5 years, I'd managed a country club pool, taught lessons, taught summer league, coached summer league, and again, had my time with my family that I'm incredibly close with, and so I kind of knew, towards the end of that 5 years, like that 5th year, I was like, this is kind of time to make that jump. Like, I feel like I've learned enough from not only all these mentors, but just the different programs, with Northwestern being kind of a coach run program. Like, I had learned what that model looks like, with Irish being a parent run program with a coach owned entity. It was very unique. Like, I had learned what that looks like, right, on the backside, on the business side, on all the nitty gritty of, the team and everything else. And I'd spent years coaching club, and then I, coached college now for, 5 years. And even though I was a volunteer assistant, it was one of those things where I was integrally, like, I felt like I was an integral part of their program to understand what and how to do and run a college program. And so I just kind of made that determination of, like, I love it here. It's home, but it's safe. It's home and it's safe. I could do this for however long, and actually my current wife, my wife right now, we had met back actually in high school, and we started dating during my time at Irish Aquatics. And it's like, her family, her brother's one of my high school teammates. Like, it's safe. Both our families are here. It's great, but at the time I was like, I want another challenge, like, I really don't want to give up on my collegiate coaching dreams of being a college head coach, because that was always kind of in the back of my brain. Like, I'm building up, right? Like, start was I want to work with the best and learn from the best. And kind of the finish was like, I want to run my own collegiate program, because that's like the one thing that I never really thought it was going to be the long road, right? Like it was just going to take the long road to get there. And so, I think the biggest thing is that we, we made a decision together of like, okay, let's start applying for some of these collegiate jobs and see what happens, and she and I, had an understanding of, like if someone in the state of New York calls, like we're probably gonna need to explore this option. And she was okay with moving and going away. And so, so we kind of started applying to, different collegiate positions, and, had some success throughout that summer of, getting a few interviews here and there. But the only one that was really promising was when Coach Andy Bashor called from University at Buffalo. And that was kind of my next step. He called and, started the interview process and kind of went from there. It was fun. It was another new interview experience. The one thing I always tell any assistant or anyone that's ever worked with me is, you got to always take any interview, whether you want the job or not, or whether you think you want it or not, because you're interviewing for that next position that you really want, and you get better every single time you interview. And I hadn't really been, I've only been through at that point probably 4 real, like actual, like sit down interviews. And I can tell you, I was nervous as hell to sit down on a college campus with, a program that had just come off winning a MAC title, and, and having tremendous success on a mid-major level, and really, continued to build. And it was a nerve-wracking experience, simply because I didn't know what a college interview looked like. And they're different in every place you go. The one that I had at Buffalo, University of Buffalo, was mostly coach driven. It was Andy and his staff, meeting and taking taking me to different places on campus and things like that. But each one's incredibly different. You're never going to get one the same, even for any assistant position. So it was a great experience. And again, kind of like my first initial professional coaches experience with Dave Salo out at Irvine. Andy took a chance on me. I really had no paid collegiate coaching experience. I had simply been a volunteer and had run what I consider fairly mildly successful club programs, throughout my time coaching so far. And Andy took a chance and said, again, like, you're prepared, you're ready. You've had all these experiences. You've had time to develop a game plan. You've had time to develop your own philosophy. You've not only been in charge of clubs, but you've had to then use your knowledge to then mesh with a college coach's philosophy, because obviously, like a club philosophy is not going to probably, mesh up very well with a collegiate philosophy, simply because there's different, in a club level, you have many different kids and many different groups with many different reasons why they're swimming. In college, they're kind of swimming, especially D1. They're swimming for, kind of get an education and to be good, be fast. And so, things are you have to be well at working with people, but you also have to have your own kind of style and philosophy to then run, a successful group or successful program.
No doubt about it. And, you're working for an incredibly thoughtful and meticulous mind in an Andy Bashor. What are some of the things that you learned from him? And this is good for us to know in this house, because we may or may not have somebody living here who's looking at UB.
Yeah. I think, with Andy, it was always, again, it was the way we kind of ran things when I was there, we, at the time we were combined. We had a men's and women's program at the time, for all 5 years that I was at Buffalo. And, so it was a little bit different, I think, than maybe what it would be now, just because they have the women's program. But, we were each kind of given our group, like each one of the top assistants was given their own group, and then Andy had his own group. And so from going from a club position where I was used to writing workouts and, in a wide range of workouts, from national level kids to junior nationals to state qualifiers and whatnot, but being able to then, for him to have that trust in us to say, okay, like, my 5 years at Buffalo, I was almost exclusively the middle distance coach. So I ran the middle distance group, and have that trust in us to say, this is your group, what are you doing? What's your plan? And say, okay, well, that sounds pretty good. Or have you thought about this? Again, kind of just more guidance, I guess, and just making sure that we're kind of hitting certain things or certain areas. But I mean, Andy's definitely a planner, and so learn that from him. I can tell you that I wasn't a great planner before I got to Buffalo. It's kind of that maturation, I think, as a coach, when you kind of get to a point where not necessarily you're forced to be, super organized and plan things out, but I mean, I just always naturally just kind of know the flow of things. And so I didn't really have to plan out a lot. It just kind of was what I knew and how I knew it. But then, when you're working with a program that had 5 coaches, 5 staff members, we had a GA and then another assistant as well, and a diving coach, then you need to plan some things out. Everyone needs to be on the same page. You need to learn and understand how to operate budgets. And, so all those things, all of the planning types of things, I learned from Andy, and just, the passion that he has, not only for the sport, but just for UB, I mean, is infectious. When I got the call, I was like, to be honest, Andy, like, I don't know a ton about UB, just because they were so far away from my home, and New York, everyone thinks New York is so far away, right? Like, it's Western New York really isn't. But it's just, he took me in literally, I think the first 2 weeks I was there. We didn't have a house. And so, he was like, well, just come live at my house. We got an extra room. You come stay in our house. And, until your wife gets out here. It's a funny story. I'll make it quick, but, I interviewed for the job. My wife and I had gotten married that summer. And we got married July 2nd. We were doing the typical, coach's delayed honeymoon, because obviously July 2nd doesn't really fit into a summer swim schedule. And so we had nationals and juniors and things like that. So we actually went on an August honeymoon. Andy knew during the interview process, he knew we had just got married. We were going to delay our honeymoon and whatnot. And so my interview was literally the week before we were leaving for our honeymoon. And on the interview, it asked, like, when are you leaving, this and that. And I said, oh, yeah, here and here. And he's like, okay, cool. Well, we'll be in touch, and that's kind of how we left the interview. I was like, okay, cool. So literally we drive from South Bend to Chicago. We're flying out of O'Hare. We're going to Turks and Caicos for our honeymoon, and no call. I'm like, God. He knew when I was leaving. We're leaving tomorrow at like 6 a.m. Like, I'm kind of bummed. I really wanted this job, and stayed in a hotel that night. No call. Literally that next day we were flying out. I don't know what day it was, but that next day he called. It was like 9 a.m. We're sitting in Atlanta's airport, because we flew from Chicago to Atlanta to Turks and Caicos, and sitting in Atlanta's airport. And he's like, hey, Will, how's it going? He's like, you're leaving for your honeymoon tomorrow, right? And I was like, no, like we're halfway there. We're in Atlanta. He's like, oh geez, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought it was tomorrow. he's like, well, hopefully I can make it a little bit better for you. I want to offer you the position, and, kind of go from there. And so, yeah, so literally on our flight to our honeymoon, we had to start planning to sell a house and move to Buffalo, New York, and all those good things that come from moving. But yeah, no, Andy was a tremendous head coach to work for and work with, because he just, he was so passionate and so, and just wanted so bad to make this mid-major program, the best it possibly could be, and compete with, Power Five conferences, and, have swimmers that are going to Olympic trials. And I mean, his passion was so contagious, and just so great to be around, because it was like, man, like, I can't wait, I can't wait to do what you're saying, like, let's go, and so it was just so much fun. It was a great experience.
That was a pretty amazing staff you had when you were there. I think Aaron Bell was there at that time, and you had GA positions, and you guys did very, very well. I had an athlete from Marist Swim Club swim there while Andy was there, Eric Culver,
Yeah.
who ended up being Phil Aronica's roommate. And Phil's doing a great job as a head coach, a head site coach at Star. And
Yep.
just amazing how small the swimming world is,
Yeah. I still talk to those guys. I talked to Culver a couple weeks ago when he got engaged,
Yeah.
it's great. And Culver, his family, he's really into baseball, huge Yankees fan. And, we went out to Irvine for nationals or US Opens one year when he was there. Went to a San Diego game when they were playing the Yankees, got to see Mariano Rivera come in for a save during his retirement year, or the year before he retired. So yeah, like it's so crazy how everything kind of balloons up, and you just have so many athletes now. Like you said, like Phil was one of the athletes in my mid-D group for almost my entire time at Buffalo. And it's just so much fun to see all these athletes that then get into coaching, when you're coaching them, and you just, I mean, you have one now, like, you just, when you have those athletes that you coach, and they are a significant part of your life as far as your coaching career, you just have so much, when they kind of decide to get into that coaching, it's like, I just want to do anything for that person and help them, because they just are a different, they just have that different relationship with you, because it's like, I want to help you, and I can't wait to help you. And so those relationships, I think, is what really drives me in the coaching world of, finding, and helping assistants, or helping coaches, head coaches, assistant coaches, whatever it is. That's why I think, like, with ASCA and doing all the different programs and having fellowships and having, mentorships and things like that, I think is just key, because, you're going to have, you hear people talk about their coaching tree all the time, right? And it's great, but I think, it's just, it really does mean a tremendous amount to me. I think to a lot of other coaches, to have those opportunities to see their athletes then kind of come back to the sport and start that coaching career.
No doubt about it. So now you're becoming a seasoned coach, right?
Yeah.
And you're at Buffalo, and then take us to the next stage.
Yeah. So from Buffalo, like 5 years with Andy, I mean, when I, that was one of my interview questions, with Andy, is, what are your aspirations? What do you want to do in the coaching world? And, I basically told him from the get-go, like, I want to be a head coach at a collegiate program. Like, I want to run my own program. I want to coach college. I'm passionate about it. My own experiences as a college athlete has led me to believe that I can make a difference in some of these guys' lives, because as an athlete, I had some great coaches as well, but I also, had some coaches I was like, well, I know that's probably not how I'm going to do some things, right? Like, you kind of have, you start to develop a lot of those philosophies and things that are important to you. But, so I knew, like, going into UB, like, I wanted to then be a head coach. And so over my 5 years at Buffalo, Andy helped me develop to a point where I felt comfortable stepping out and then taking that next leap into a head collegiate coaching position. And that was, each year maybe adding some different responsibilities, or, if, like, I started, first couple of years I was planning the training trip, to Florida, And so, that then evolved into, okay, now you're planning the train trip to Florida, but I also want you to do X, Y, and Z. I want you to be the head recruiter from this area or from that area or these people, right? And so things started to evolve, things started to build. I was named associate head coach my last 2 years there, and that then falls into having maybe a meeting every month with our sports supervisor, right, where she kind of talks to me about running through the loops of, this is what it's going to be like to be a head coach. Like, these are some of the things you're going to have to deal with, and Andy was really good at pulling us in on issues that came up, or swimmers, something happened with a swimmer where we needed to maybe have a conversation about grades, or having a conversation about discipline or whatnot. Like, he was really good at bringing us in on those, because he knew one day we were going to need to have those conversations with our own athletes. And so from there, started looking and started interviewing with different colleges, and had a lot of head coaching kind of interviews over the course of my last year and a half there, and got hired on as the head coach at Wittenberg University, which is a D3 school out of Springfield, Ohio. Was my first head coaching collegiate gig, and learned a tremendous amount. I had a great athletic director that I worked for there. His name's Gary Williams. And just learned that there's so much that you think but you don't really know until you're there doing it. And that's kind of my experience at WIT was I had a great assistant coach, James Dunsdorf. He's down in Louisville now, coaching down in Louisville, running a Y down there. But had a GA, my second year there, Laura Harding. She's actually just got a job at Florida Tech down in Florida. She was just at St. Bonaventure up there in Western New York. But running your own program, especially a small D3 school, there's just a lot that you just don't know that you need to know. And so it was a great learning experience, going from, I think the biggest difference for me in what I learned in my time at Wittenberg was just that the relationships do change with your athletes. At Buffalo, being the assistant coach or even the associate head coach, the athletes identify you as maybe the person that they can kind of go to with hey, can I talk to you about this? Or, they feel a little bit more comfortable coming into your office, sitting down, maybe talking about whatever it is, or just joking and having a good time, right? Like, I got a couple pranks pulled on me as an assistant coach at Buffalo, and they feel comfortable doing that. And that's, I think, a healthy relationship. I think they need that. I think that's what's important. My time at Wittenberg, I kind of wanted that. I was like, God, I kind of want that. But it was like, oh, but you're the head coach, and so that transition from being that assistant coach to now being the head coach in charge of the program, it changes the interactions and how the athletes, not only like speak to you, but how they kind of come in or don't come in, right? And so I learned really quickly that you need to have those assistant coaches in place that they feel comfortable having those conversations in, and understanding that really makes a huge difference from their perspective. And learning how to listen to the athletes, I think, is the biggest thing I learned, from that, is that, they needed that outlet, right? And they needed that opportunity to have that person. And so, that's something that I talk about with assistants all the time, just being able to be that person for the athletes, because it is important to have that relationship with them. And so that was a pretty hard lesson to learn, because I am a pretty relationship driven coach. And that was tough for me to swallow, because I didn't feel like I didn't have the opportunity to have as close a relationships that I wanted, and trying to navigate how then to develop those relationships. It was something that it took me a good year to figure that out.
Well, I mean, just so much experience that you've had in the past, and different relationships with different athletes on different collegiate teams. And it's all led you to where you are now, which is a very fast up and coming Division III men's program. and what you've done in the short time at Wabash has been pretty remarkable. So
Thank you.
talk to us about finding that spot where you just feel like this is it. This is where I feel like I will make a huge difference, not only in the program, but in the lives of the student athletes at the school.
Yeah, yeah, and when I was at Wittenberg, we're in the same conference as Wabash and NCAC, one of the fastest D3 swimming conferences in the country. Kenyon and Denison are in there, and perennial top three every single year. So knowing that when I was at Wittenberg, and then when they kind of were looking for to hire a new head coach here, I knew pretty quickly that this was the place that I really wanted to go after pretty hard. I knew that this was a place that I could make a pretty big, significant impact. I had a friend that I went to that swam with me in club growing up. He went to school here, had tremendous success swimming for Coach Gail Pebworth, who's the only female Hall of Fame coach in an all-male colleges Hall of Fame, which I think is pretty significant, pretty awesome. We still have coffee and lunch, at least hopefully once a month. As COVID kind of threw that all for a loop. But, I think that, knowing the history of not only the program here, that it has had a lot of pretty good D3 success, knowing the academic success of this institution and kind of what that means for our student athletes was huge for me. It was kind of the perfect fit for me. I knew academically they were going to be incredibly challenged and at a very high academic reputation, and having the ability to press forward and push themselves in the classroom. But then also I knew where we were as a team, that we could be better, and then we can get back to a place where we were, several years ago, which is, being in that top 20 in the country, then being in the top 15 in the country, being top 10, that's our goal. We want to make that move. And each year, each class we've recruited here, we've progressively gotten closer and closer to that. And I just think that finding, sitting down as a coach throughout your levels or wherever you're at, and sitting down and kind of identifying things that are important to you, and kind of what I'll call non-negotiables, right? Like something that you want in a program that is what you're going to need to be successful. For me, it was a small campus with high academic reputation, with a high level of athletic kind of success, but also a high level of athletic kind of focus, where our guys, all our sports here, I think do a marvelous job of competing. And that's what I want. I just want our guys to compete. I want them to get better. I want them to understand that, getting great grades is something that is incredibly important to us, because you're not going to go through 4 years of school here and get poor grades and then be on the swim team. You got to do both. And I just feel like, for me, throughout my years of kind of my progression, identifying those areas where I really wanted to make an impact with is what helped me land this job. And then also just having the ability to be here and work with them is incredibly grateful, and been blessed since my time here. I mean, it's been great. We have guys that really want to succeed and want to graduate with 4.0s, that want to be a national qualifier, that want to be doctors and lawyers. And it really does make things a little bit easier from a coach's standpoint, because they're dedicated and they have the desire to be here and be here to work, and our guys work hard, and they know that, when we talk to recruits, we tell them, like, look, this isn't a program where you're going to come in and kind of just flow through and hopefully you get better. Like, hope doesn't really have a place in an effective coaching. Like, you need to be prepared. And, that's something that each and every day we talk to these guys about is, being prepared for that next step. And for a lot of our guys, that, from a swimming standpoint, that kind of takes care of itself, because if they're taking care of their academic lives and their social lives and their physical health and their mental health, the swimming side of things is going to be the easiest thing they're going to do, and so we push and we make sure that they understand that they need to be that well-rounded person here, and that's a place that really helps me stay focused and stay passionate, because I come in every day just happy to coach these kids and these guys, because they come in, hey coach, what are we doing today? How are we going to get better? It's not like, oh, hey coach, like, I mean, we have those days, obviously there's those days, but for the most part, I mean, it's they just come in ready and willing to get better, because they know that we're trying to catch two of the fastest teams in the country. And if we can do that, then everything's going to be, I think, it's going to be a lot easier from a standpoint of, just keeping them moving forward. AMF, always move forward. That's kind of what I tell them, always move forward.
I love it, Will. I love it. And I'll tell you, I have a good relationship with Greg Perini, and he knows you're coming. And it's been
good.
Fun to watch those guys and your relay team start to challenge Kenyon and Denison. And I know you'll continue to do that. And I can tell you that there are days where I'll say to Dan, what do you think Will would think about this? And Dan will say to me sometimes, hey, Will might have done this. And so you are indirectly contributing directly to Victor Swim Club. And I know that Dan is super appreciative of the time there. He speaks very highly of you in the program.
Yep.
And I hope you feel very proud about that, because we are gaining so much from his knowledge and experience of working with you. And your story is remarkable. A lot of coaches could go through their entire coaching career and not be able to have a lot of the experiences that you've had. And you've had those experiences, Will, because you created it yourself. And I think if coaches walk away from this episode, they're going to walk away with a really good understanding of the amount of work that it takes and the amount of courage it takes to be able to reach out to maybe some of those coaching heroes in our life and take a chance, right? And I want to hit you here with 3 quick fire questions.
Yeah.
And the first one is Dan Burke a bottomless pit that you can't fill with any type of food when you travel?
Yes.
It's unbelievable, man. I don't know, like, he's always eating.
And he's the fastest eater. I mean, I'm halfway through a meal and he's like consumed 2. I
know it. Second one, Michigan Northwestern this weekend. Trap game for Michigan. Does Northwestern come out top? I'll tell you, that's a well-coached team over there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Michigan's going to come out on top. I do. I don't know. I just got a feeling.
What are you most excited about for the sport in our country and globally moving forward here?
I think just what I'm most excited about is just the fact that I feel like over the past few years, there's just been more of a global kind of sharing of knowledge and global just push forward, right? Like I've just, seen, I just feel like from a country and just other countries, like, everyone's like, oh, Australia is kind of, they had a great Olympics and they're catching us. I'm like, how is that a bad thing? Like, that's only going to make every other person better, right? And all the other countries there. I mean, you've just seen some amazing swimming out of everywhere, and I just think that it's so much fun because I've always maintained that for our sport to continue to grow and get better, like it's got to be more global, and I think we're getting to a point there where it is, and we're able to have a professional swimming league, which, like, I mean, really, like how cool is that, right? And I know it's still in its infancy, and there's still probably some things that are growing pains, but like it's happening, and I think that the reach that we're having as coaches, I think, is just continually growing and getting bigger and better. And I think that is just something that is so fun because, like you said, I mean, there's just, you got to have courage and you have to have the ability just to go out and make opportunities for yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing that I would love to make sure to any coach that has any sort of questions for me is, you can't expect a world-class swimmer just to kind of fall in your lap, right? I mean, you have to work at it. You have to continue to push forward in your knowledge and in your expertise, and expanding who you're talking with is probably the biggest, I think, thing that anyone can do. And I don't know very many coaches out there, as far as the swimming world goes, that aren't going to help you in your pursuit, if you ask them. And again, got to have persistence. It might not be today, might not be tomorrow, but if you're out there, hustling and trying to figure out this information, go to clinics, go to regional clinics, go to national clinics, read books. That's one of the things that we've tried to do here. Like, we're doing a lot of team building here and culture building. Each summer I have our guys read a book, and then we discuss it, and it's a theme for the whole year. And just have everything that you want as a young coach, everything that you want to do. No one's going to give it to you. And so you got to go out there, and you just have to work at it and continually craft your style, craft your philosophy, craft your being, your person, to be the coach you want to be, and continue just to push forward. Like I said, AMF, always move forward, and always be thinking about what your non-negotiables are, and they're going to change. If you asked me that 15 years ago, I'd tell you one thing, and I guarantee you they weren't the same as they are today. Life changes, things change, but I really appreciate just sharing my story, and hopefully inspiring, one person and that would watch this to be like, all right, like, I can do this, because that's what I think is so great about our sport, is that there are so many inspiring figures out there that you can learn and grow from. And there's so much content that you can experiment with anything. We stole a set from you guys. You posted it on the coaches exchange. Our distance guys did it last Thursday, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I was like, no, this is a great set. Here's why it's a great set. And I think, if you're not stealing, you're not a good coach, because there's just so much stuff out there that I think is great, that don't get stuck in your ways. I think is another thing, is just find ways to get better and grow, because each and every year, your team's going to change, your athlete's going to change, and you need to change with them to help them grow and get better.
Well, we are so thankful and appreciative of your time today. This is a master class. I learned so much, and I'm obviously going to be taking away AMF for sure. Yeah. And I know that Dan just walked in here. He's sitting next to me, and we're going to go keep learning. And we so look forward to sharing this episode with all our viewers at Fitter and Faster Swim Camps. And right now I get to hang out with Michaela Sargent and Dan Burke for an hour before we go to practice.
Sounds pretty fantastic.
Hey man, come out and visit anytime. We'd love to see you. All the best to Wabash. And if you see Savannah Sargent on deck at a swim meet, please say hello for us.
Will do.
All right, man. Thanks, Will.
All right. Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.